Everybody, it's your main man, Anthony Brogdon. I'm with a smooth guy on the channel today. Let me tell you, this brother is a conscious gentleman. He's leading an international movement to help strangers and within our community to enhance our consciousness of coming together under the principles of one of our foremost leaders. You'll hear his name in a second. And he is dedicating his life to this, the gentleman on the channel I'm speaking of. I am super excited. Strong Inspirations, where I give it to you straight, no chaser. I'm going to intoxicate your mind through the people. No, not me. My guests are going to intoxicate your mind, not DUI, staggering, and all that stuff, but staggering with what information, and so much, so clear, so precise, so informative information that they give you. So do me a favor, my brothers and my sisters out there, and I'm talking about all nationalities who are watching me. I'm talking about from across the globe. Hit the subscribe button. It's free. It don't ask no information. Hit the like button on this video because I know you're going to like it. My man is committed to the cause. He's going to tell you something that I know you don't know, and you're going to feel his strength. Watch. Hit the notifications bell for when the videos come up. You get a ding, a shock, a smoke signal. Your horn in your car goes off, something to let you know that there is new information on Strong Inspirations, and then tell somebody about us. Share the link. Send them an email, a text. Tell them that there is now a channel where the people do the talking. And forget about all that stuff where, well, Black people don't keep their history alive. We don't know what's going on. That's no more. And that was never the case. There is now another vehicle, so it's not the case for sure. And that's Strong Inspirations. Watch the video that I have up about that sister. Her name is Marion Allen, I believe. But any event, look it up. She is a Ida B. Wells type lady, present day, where she is putting together those marches in Laurel, Mississippi. She said she put together a march and them racists was up in the trees on the rooftop with rifles. I asked her, I said, was you scared? She said, yeah, a little bit, because I got a phone call from the sheriff the night before that said there could be trouble. They thought we were there to tear down one of them Confederate statues. She said, I don't even notice the statue. Care nothing about that statue. Statue ain't got nothing to do for me. I do nothing to look at that statue. And she said, then when we got to the march, one of the people among us, the brother that was on the street, he laid down his gun in front of that racist and said, man, I'm only here in love. And he stuck out his hand, and the racist said, whoa, what am I going to do? And he's talking about he a Christian. So he shook his hand. He said, come on my side. That sister made me cry. I got a lady on the channel. She's out of Elaine, Arkansas. She says that her great uncle and aunt was killed in that massacre. You ain't heard much about that one. They were sharecroppers and they was tired of being taken advantage of. They just said, hey, man, we got to figure out another way. Man got so mad he wanted to keep doing what he was doing that he killed like 200 of them over a 3-day period. Some of them was in a church and they shot up the church. Watch that video. Watch the one that I got with Frederick Douglass's 3-time great-grandson, who is also Booker T. Washington's 2-time great son. Booker T. Washington's son, daughter, whatever, and this Frederick Douglass' son, daughter hooked up. And he's a product of that relationship. All that knowledge filtered through his family. Watch that video. I got Madam C.J. Walker's 2-time great-granddaughter. I got one. Did y'all know she only ran that business for 13 years? She was in her late 30s when she started, and she died in her early 50s. She made all that happen just that fast. She was smart. She was inventive, intuitive, good products. Watch that video. Watch all of them. Share them with your people. Y'all in the classrooms. Y'all go ahead and watch this. You can move the cursor to get past me, before me, whatever you want to do so these kids can hear these people talk. Do that, my friends. I really appreciate it. Watch my movie. It's called Business in the Black, The Rise of Black Business in America. Slaves who went to college. People say how that happened. There were HBCUs open before slavery ended. It's streaming on Amazon. Do that, my friends, and then read my book. It's called Black Business Book. Talks a lot about what the movie talks about, but it's more thorough. This book is good, not just because I wrote it. I had other people tell me that. Get your copy. And how about this? Every 10th book I sell, I donate a book to a school. You buy 10 books, I donate them to the school of your choice in your name. Because when I was in school, they didn't teach what I got in this book. And if they had it, I probably would have been more, not probably, I know I'd have been more inspired. Because all I heard was the beat down of Black history. That wasn't all the story. And what this gentleman is going to talk about ain't no beat down. It's an uplift. It's about a man uplifting our community way back when. So get you a copy of that. For all that I do, go to my website, businessintheblack.net. Because when you in business, you want to be in the black. In the red ain't good. And there is no in the white. There is no in the white. Not when it comes to those numbers, that profit and loss situation. The black is where you want to be. Now, you hear me use this term strong a lot. Strong is my favorite word. I wish my middle name was Strong. I've been saying strong for a long time. When I die, put strong on my headstone. And strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. And that is my introduction to my guest today. He's a strong soul brother. Let me tell you, when I met him, we shook hands. He got one of them firm handshakes. He look you in the eye. He talks distinctly to you. He dressed well. And he's a leader of a movement. Come on, my brother, introduce yourself. Thank you for being on Strong Inspirations.
Thank you for having me, brother, and very good evening to you, my dear brother Brogdon. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. It was a pleasure meeting you 2 weeks ago, and here I am. Thank you. My name is Michael Duncan. I'm the 10th successor to the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. That makes me the 11th President General of this illustrious organization, government. And when I say government, I mean a government formed by the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey in 1914. Mr. Garvey was the greatest man that ever walked earth. And we are happy that he left these black prints for us to follow. From 1914 until 1920, when they created the Constitution for the black man, the red, black, and green flag for the black man, which is the UNIA flag. They gave us a constitution, it gave us a government in 1920. We are here representing Mr. Garvey. Anything I think of, anything I plan, anything I do are from the prescription and the black prints left us by Mr. Garvey and our ancestors. I'm honored to be here.
I love it. I got to ask a couple of questions about you personally, just so my audience gets to know you. Where were you born and raised?
I was born on the island of Jamaica, lived there for 14 years, at which time I migrated to New York City. I lived in Brooklyn until about 1993. I moved to Queens, New York.
Okay. Let me ask you, when you talk about Jamaica, did you live in the black side of town? I mean, I saw black, but did you, what city in Jamaica did you live in?
But I live in Kingston, and it's a poor part of Kingston where I was born and grew up, but I was brought up with a lot of pride and a lot of self-confidence.
Because your parents told you some things that you took heed of.
Yeah, and some of the main thing I learned from my parents was just being responsible for yourself, being responsible for your brothers and sisters, being responsible for the people you live, work, and go to school with. That sense of togetherness.
Did you see something in your early years or whatever years that really triggered you to be the kind of guy that you are?
Well, I saw a lot of things during my older younger years, and as I got older, into my late teens, and I picked up the book Philosophy and Opinion of Marcus Garvey, and I started learning more from Marcus Garvey. Then those things I experienced at an early age then had more significance, and I understood them better at that point in my life.
Did you, like I must admit, I was fortunate because I was always kind of talkative type dude, and I see some older people and I go ask them questions. Besides your parents, was there somebody that took you to the side and said, hey, brother, let me show you something. Let me tell you something about Blackness, about Black history, otherwise?
Well, in Jamaica, who did that was the Rastaman.
Oh, really?
Growing up in Jamaica, we had Rastaman in our communities. And it was the Rastaman who taught me at an early age to be humble, to love your brother like you really love yourself. The Rastaman showed us a pure sense of pride and love. He also practiced self-reliance. I didn't even realize it then, but the Rastaman was practicing self-reliance. One thing that was very significant to me in my early age, in my, say, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, is that all the grocery stores in Jamaica at that point, they were owned by Chinese. And then you would always see their little children working in their stores. And I'm always wondering, how come we couldn't own stores like these? And how come we cannot be behind the counter and serving? So that point there, that situation there had an early impact on me living in Jamaica.
And that's kind of wild for that to happen. So were you vocal among your friends as you moved along the timeline of your life?
Yeah, well, yeah. Are you speaking about as a child in Jamaica?
Yeah, as a child, or even when you got to New York?
Yeah,
were you vocal kind of person?
as a child, I was a very outspoken and confident child. Mr. Garvey said it best. He said, with confidence, you have won even before you start. Without confidence, you are twice defeated in the race of life. And we learned about Mr. Garvey, but only as a hero in Jamaica. We never learned the great things that he did. It's when I actually migrated to these United States, then through my studies and everything else, I learned about Mr. Garvey. But me at 17 in high school, by chance, I picked up the book, Philosophy and Opinion of Marcus Garvey. And therein at that time, what the Rastaman was preaching in Jamaica had more meaning to me at that time. What I had seen in those supermarkets all over Jamaica, where these supermarkets were not owned by Jamaicans. And in my little community, there were 3 supermarkets and they were all owned by Chinese families. And we would always see the Chinese families and their children running the businesses in our community and us just buying. That had an impact on me at a young age. I never forgot those children, those Chinese children, being behind the counter and wondering why that couldn't be me or our children.
You mentioned Marcus Garvey as the influence, but were you more in line to him in your early years? Did you read about Malcolm X or Dr. King, and he more appealed to you?
Well, after reading Marcus Garvey, I realized how great Marcus Garvey was. But when I really understood how great Marcus Garvey was, and I had to admit that Marcus Garvey is the greatest man that ever walked earth. How I've really found that out is when I listened to Martin Luther King. He said, Marcus Garvey showed us the way to salvation. If there weren't a Marcus Garvey, you would not have seen a king, nor would you have seen an X. When I read Malcolm X was born on the lap of the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. His father and mother met in a UNIA Garvey meeting in Canada. So Malcolm X learned from Marcus Garvey early. And Malcolm X went on to say Marcus Garvey had the greatest influence, Garvey and Garveyism. He went on to say, every time I see an island in the Caribbean, every time I see an African country getting its independence, I know that Marcus Garvey is alive. W.E. Du Bois, who was a hater of Marcus Garvey, admitted in his last stages of life that Marcus Garvey ways was the way. Marcus Garvey ways was the right ways. So how I confirm that Marcus Garvey is the greatest man that ever walked earth is that as I listen to all our great scholars, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere, every one of them praised the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey as the one who inspired them. John Henry Clark said, all Pan-Africanist group owe Mr. Garvey a debt of gratitude. His Back to Africa movement shook the cornerstones of 3 empires. He said, Marcus Garvey is second to none. So that is my reason after studying and seeing and hearing all the great ones, how they revered Mr. Garvey.
Well, give us a little history lesson. When was Marcus Garvey born? Where was he born? What shaped his life?
Marcus Garvey was born in St. Anne's Parish in Jamaica in 1887. And he went to school in that region. And at a young age, Mr. Garvey was very bright. He had the advantage of a library that his father used. He used that library and he studied everything. He read everything. He said we should read 4 hours a day. Mr. Garvey left the rural parts of Jamaica and went to Kingston to work in a printer that a relative of his own. And there he starts seeing the struggles of Black people in Jamaica. He realized that in Jamaica, the darker skinned people were at the bottom of the barrel. So at a young age, he started advocating for the poor people. And of course, because of that, he encountered a lot of problems. So by 1910, Mr. Garvey said he wanted to see what the world had. And he traveled all throughout South and Central America, where every country, every city he went to, he saw the same plight as Black people. Black people, just like in Jamaica, they were at the bottom of the barrel in every situation. He searched, he walked, he worked throughout South and Central America. He came back to Jamaica early 1912, and later 1912, he traveled to Europe. While being in Europe, he saw the exact same situation in Europe. Black people, again, were living life like peons, like serfs. And again, he said, what are we going to do about the situation in these regions for Black people? He didn't make it to America at that point, but he read Up from Slavery by Booker T. Washington, and that gave him a good idea of what was the situation for Black people, African people in these United States. Finally, on a trip from London in 1914, he met a Jamaican brother who had a sister from the Basuta land. That was the land that exists within South Africa. I think at this point, they call it Swaziland. It is surrounded by South Africa. And on the boat that night, Mr. Garvey spoke to that brother and his Basuta wife, and they explained to him the plight of Black people in Africa. And it was the same all over. That night, Mr. Garvey went to bed and tears came to Mr. Garvey's eyes as he said, all over, my people are facing this plight. That night, Mr. Garvey asked himself those famous questions. Where's the Black man king and his kingdom? Where is his army, his government, his people of high places? Mr. Garvey said, I can't see them. I can't find them. Therefore, I will make them. And as he got back to Jamaica that year, on July 20, 1914, he started the Universal Negro Improvement Association and the African Communities League. Thank you, brother.
Let me ask you this. Are there monuments in where his house was, where he was born in Jamaica, or where the headquarters to that organization is? Are there monuments to that today?
Well, right now, they're finally completing his childhood home as a museum in St. Ann's Bay, and at the Parish Library in St. Ann's Bay, in St. Ann's, there's a statue of him where they're currently upgrading that as well. In Kingston, the National Hero Circle, there's a big monument there of the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. And one of his places where he had his office when he went back to Jamaica, there's a monument there as well. There's a bust there with some information.
I love it. How did he afford to do this travel? Did he have a job or donors? How did he afford it?
Okay, when Marcus Garvey left Jamaica, by the way, when Marcus Garvey left Jamaica, even before he came to the United States, of course, he worked with the printery, and he paid his way from Jamaica to one of the first countries. I think that was Costa Rica. And as he went to these places, he would take odd jobs to make a living so he could move about. So he did that by working as timekeeper on various plantations to be able to cover his living and traveling expenses.
At this stage in life, how old is he in his early days when he's traveling and he's developing himself?
Okay, let's think about it. He moved to Kingston when he was 14 years old and was working as a printer apprentice at 14. He went to South and Central America. He left Jamaica at that point. He was 23 years old when he traveled South and Central. He was 25 when he traveled almost the entire Europe. Keep in mind, Mr. Garvey got to the United States with $3 in his pocket, 1916. By 1919, Mr. Garvey was buying his first ship for $165,000 with a cost of living adjustment of 6% from then until now. It's approximately $18 million Mr. Garvey raised within 3 years. And then a few months after that again, he bought another ship for almost $200,000. Again, with a cost of living adjustment, that's $22 million.
Right.
So just imagine, Marcus Garvey got here in 1916, penniless, one of his detractors quoted saying, how can a man arrive here 3 years ago, penniless, and in no time he has bought 3 ships. He has the Factory Workers Corporation in Harlem. He has the Black Star Line Steam Company. He has 2 restaurants. He has the Black Doll Factory. He has buildings up on top of buildings, up on top of buildings. How is that possible? My brother, one answer. Our ancestors and God himself was working through the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey.
No question, which leads to, you know, when you start something at the beginning, it takes a minute for people to catch on.
Yes.
Well, I mean, you know, just, and then there are probably people saying, man, I don't believe you, you're not, you know, you talking mess. Did he had a special gift of gab? Did he have his own newspaper?
Yes, of course. Of course. When Mr. Garvey speaks, people listen. People get attracted. You got to realize he had 45,000 members in Harlem alone. He just have that attract people. And remember, it didn't work well for him in Jamaica in the beginning because Jamaicans were still under that mindset of being British, being ruled by England. But North America was perfect for Mr. Garvey. Reason why North America was perfect because the freed slave, the Black citizens in Jamaica looked up to their slave master. The Black former slaves in America was looking for a new
I love it.
Leader. They didn't want to succumb to the slave master anymore. So when Mr. Garvey arrived in Harlem and he stepped on the podium, and when he said, Black is beautiful,
I love it.
This was music to African people ears. Remember, you were being told that your Black skin is a badge of shame. Now you have a brother who is telling you your Black skin is a great symbol of national greatness.
I love
Do
it.
you know how good these people felt, my brother?
Sure, I could dig it. So now in Harlem, is there a monument or where his first business was or where he lived or the building that he did his work from?
No, brother, they're all gone. I don't know if you know the church that Adam Clayton Powell was a pastor.
Is that Abyssinian?
That was one, the Abyssinian Baptist Church.
Right.
That was one of Marcus Garvey's building. But you have to realize that when the US government realized how powerful Marcus Garvey was and that he was in fact uniting Black people, they went after him and they went after him viciously. They wanted to make sure so many Black people would never organize under one banner anymore. So they did everything to destroy Garvey and Garveyism. They stole most of the buildings. They just took everything because they did not want Black people to be so united again.
And so he's on the radar quickly.
Yes.
And now they're doing these things to combat him. Who else is around his time? I'm sure Frederick Douglass is before him, but who else was around his time that he?
Yeah, Frederick Douglass was before him. He had like Booker T. Washington, but Booker T. Washington gave him the invitation to come to America because he wanted to see Booker T's institution, because his plan at first was to build such an institution like Booker T had here for Black people. But by time he got here, Booker T died. But you have to realize that some of our leaders, especially W.E. Du Bois was around that time, they felt jealous because W.E. Du Bois, he believed in the talented tenth. He believed that the half-breed had to rule the Black people.
Really?
Yeah, they believed in the talented 10th. So Mr. Garvey, he couldn't view Mr. Garvey as being a leader. He referred to Mr. Garvey as that short, ugly man, black, ugly man from Jamaica.
Really?
Really, of course.
Was Marcus Garvey short? Well, how tall was he?
He was short. Marcus Garvey, short and stocky.
Yeah, right. That's how the pictures look.
So, but W.E. Du Bois, honestly, brother, set us back 300 years for the work he did against the Garvey movement. So he was one of the greatest critics. He and his talented A. Philip Randolph, they weren't with Garvey because they couldn't understand how a Black man could be leading so many Black people. It should not be him. It should be them who were considered half-breed, of light complexion, mixed here.
I got you.
They believed that they should be the leaders. So they did not like Mr. Garvey, and they went against Mr. Garvey strongly.
Now at this point, Marcus is big in New York. When does he start traveling and reaching Black people throughout America? What's that timeline?
When Mr. Garvey came here in 1916, he was just coming to get acquainted with Booker T. Washington and to do some fundraising. But Mr. Garvey started traveling throughout the US. I think it was 32 states. And the more he traveled to these states, the more he realized that he's electrifying Black people and he's uniting Black people. Louisiana alone had 73 UNIA chapters. Louisiana alone, wherever the suffrage was strongest, those were the places that had the most UNIA branch. So as Mr. Garvey did his first travel, he realized he could not go back to Jamaica because this was the place that Black people were ready for this movement. And also, you must remember that this United States, no matter how bad things were, the richest set of Africans, the richest set of Black people lived here in these United States.
I got you. When does he decide to have this movement to go back to Africa? Is there a year that he first starts talking about it?
Well, once he started planning, he realized that we could not stay here in the system here because he realized, so as soon as he started planning the movement in 1914, he realized we have to go back to Africa. But he didn't start promoting it until about 1916, 1917, when he really started developing a strong financial base. And by 1920, when he created a government, the UNIA is an actual government. I don't know if you know, brother, but for any country to become a government, they need 5 things. And the UNIA acquired those 5 things and was recognized as a government, my brother. The first thing is that you have to have a plebiscite where you're going to advertise and let the world know what you want. 2, you had to give a declaration to the world. And Mr. Garvey and 25,000 people, Black people, African people from around the world stood in front of Madison Square Garden in 1920 and gave that declaration. And they did. The third thing you must have a flag. And our flag, the UNIAACL flag, is red, black, and green, and it was given to us by Mr. Garvey and the UNIA on August 13th, 1920. The 4th thing you must have a constitution. The UNIA had its constitution since 1918. And the last thing you must have, you must be recognized by a certain amount of countries over the world. And the UNIA was recognized by 44 countries over the world. UNIA had relationship with 44 different countries. We had a passport, which we used this passport up until in the 1960s.
Oh man, I love it. When he has this movement to go back to Africa, and I have a lady on the channel who her father did that, her great grandfather.
Yes.
Once he got his freedom, so on and so forth, they moved to Liberia. Where did Marcus Garvey suggest that people go and how to get there?
Okay. After looking at everything, at that point in time, 1918, there were only two free African countries, Liberia and Ethiopia. Marcus Garvey chose Liberia because Liberia was established as a haven for the Black man. You have to realize that the brothers and sisters here were sent back to Liberia in 1822. The US government did not want free Black man roaming around America. So they devised a plan to send them back to Africa, and Liberia was chosen. But as the colonial society took the first batch of Africans from the Washington, D.C., Virginia area back to Liberia in 1822, amazingly, they landed on a piece of land which 300 years prior, that was the land they were taking our brothers from, transporting them from that island. It's called Providence Island back here. So Mr. Garvey realized Liberia was the perfect place. So he started negotiating with Liberia. He promised them a loan of $5 million. Imagine.
Okay.
$5 million back then.
Yeah, sure.
Just imagine $60 billion, brothers and sisters. And Mr. Garvey had made the first initial payment of $250,000. However, England, who controlled Sierra Leone, which was next door, and France, who controlled Ivory Coast, which was next door, start hearing about this movement and that Mr. Garvey wanted to come. They start getting afraid because they're saying that if this man is able to organize so many people in America and over the world, what's going to happen when he comes to Africa? He's going to displace all of us.
Oh, I got you.
He's going to chase us all out of Africa. So Mr. Garvey started the plan. And I don't know if you have ever heard about the company Firestone.
No.
Firestone is the tire company here.
Yeah,
one of the biggest tire company here in America that make tires.
Right.
Okay. With Mr. Garvey planning his movement, Mr. Garvey gave a down payment for 1 million acres in Africa, in Liberia, to build that super city for Black people, for African people. Any person who wanted to migrate could move back to Africa. But prior to that time, Mr. Garvey sent pioneers to search the ground and test the ground and plan to build. So Mr. Garvey finally signed a contract with the president of Liberia, Charles D.B. King, at that point. And that's when France and England got together. England sent a letter to the US, said, under no circumstance, you must allow Mr. Garvey to land in Liberia and set up base in Liberia. But the US government had to get an informer. They had to get a spy. They had to get the biggest betrayer of the Black race, W.E. Du Bois, send him to Liberia to convince the Liberian government not to let Marcus Garvey come there.
Really?
And W.E. Du Bois was such a disgrace because what he did was to set Black people 300 years. If Mr. Garvey had finalized things in Liberia, it would be a different thing for African people all over the world. And what's so shameful about W.E. Du Bois and what he did was that in the process of doing that, he even paid his own way to Liberia while working for the government to dethrone the Garvey and Garvey movement.
So, but some people did make it.
A lot of people went to Liberia. A lot of people settled in Liberia. People from these United States, people from the Caribbean, people from Barbados. A lot of people did go and settle because they believed in this movement. They believed in this movement.
And again, you know, it's funny. At that time, I know it wasn't airplanes, so a lot of people got on them boats again and went back to Africa.
Yes. Big time. However, anyway, after Mr. Garvey died in 1940, the second President General, James Stewart, he did officially move the UNIA to Liberia in 1949. But even then, there was a lot of spying on him, making sure he didn't do certain things. So it was hard for him to continue the movement that Mr. Garvey envisioned.
On a personal note, did Mr. Garvey, was he married? Did he have kids? Any of that kind of thing?
Yes, Mr. Garvey had 2 marriages. He married first AME Ashwood Garvey, and that lasted about 6 months. He had an annulment. Then he married another Amy Jacks Garvey.
Oh, really?
And he had 2 children with her, 2 sons, Marcus Garvey Jr., who died last year.
Oh, really?
Yes, and Julius Garvey, who is still here.
What did he do to for recreation? Did, you know, I mean, when he wasn't talking and movement and stuff like that, did he have a pastime? Was he a cook or anything that
Brother,
we talk about?
Brother, since Marcus Garvey got in the movement, he had time for nothing else but the liberation of Black people. Everything he did was in furtherance of the movement. He did nothing personal for himself. It was all, and he said it when time was getting on him and he was thinking that if he's not here, he said, you know, all I have given you. Please just work with my little wife.
How did he die? Did he die of natural causes?
Okay. After being deported from these United States, he went.
Stop you right there. That happened to him. He was deported from here?
Yes.
To where?
To Jamaica. They didn't want him here. If you have to realize that the Europeans all over the world, they got together and they had a meeting. And while having the meeting, the question was, are we going to allow this one man to destroy what we took 400 years to build? So there was a mission that they had to get rid of Mr. Garvey. So even some of W.E. Du Bois again, they joined in, where the US government used them as excuse to say they asked for Mr. Garvey to be deported. W.E. Du Bois and Philip Randolph and the rest of the crew.
So he went back to Jamaica.
Yeah, he went back to Jamaica and he stayed in Jamaica until about 1935, where he then went to England because, of course, he couldn't come back here. And he was leading the movement from England. But by then, the USA had done so much to divide the meeting, the US government, to divide the UNIA, that at that point, it was a shamble of what it was in the early 1920s.
I got you. When we see Mark, so how did he die? How did
So while being in England in 1940, I guess maybe working and not even taking care of his health, just working. In 1940, he ended up having a stroke.
Oh, really?
Yes, and he died.
What was the ceremony and the homegoing for his funeral? Was it announced around the world and all the media and, you know, one of the big spectacles, for lack of a better word?
You know, honestly, I don't think it was that grand as it should have been.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you have to realize that these governments had placed so much fear in certain people and that certain people just was afraid. But in 1962, he was taken from England, where he was interred in Jamaica, and that was worthy of a great world leader. The funeral services, people from all over the world.
Oh. When we see Marcus Garvey, mostly it's one picture for the most part. I think he's sitting in a chair. He's got a suit on and medallions on him. Do you know that? You know the picture I speak of?
Yeah. But we have a lot of pictures of him.
Yeah. He always wore suits.
Always. Mr. Garvey was always dressed. Mr. Garvey believed that if you're going to lead, you must always dress properly. Because when people see you, the first thing they're going to judge you by is the way you look.
Yeah, right.
The way you dress.
But what was that? Is that his real name, Marcus Garvey? What? And you mentioned a middle name. What's his full name?
Marcus Mosiah Garvey.
And so that's his birth name. He never changed it at any
that's
point.
his birth name, Marcus
Nothing
Mosiah
like that.
Garvey. His mother said when she named him Mosiah, because when he was born, she could tell that he was going to be a great man.
Oh man, I love it.
Yeah.
Let's go to you just for a second. There have been other. You are called the National General President. What's your title?
Marcus Garvey was the first President General of the UNIA. I'm the 10th successor. So I'm the 11th President General of the UNIAACL.
How did you become that president? Did you start off in going to the meetings and then you took one office and took another office and climbed up the ladder, if I may ask?
Yeah. First I was a division president. I was the president of the local division in Queens, Division 432. I was the president of that local division where I ran that local division. Then I went into the national parent body where I became the High Chancellor. And the High Chancellor is the custodian of the funds. I started doing that in 1912 and in 2012. And in 2016, at our convention, we had our elections and I was elected President General of the UNIAACL.
So how long have you been in the organization? Many years, would you say?
I'm unofficially 20 years, but officially on the books 15.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
When you started, did you want to be the president?
No, not really. But as I got involved and I led, I realized that, you know, we have to step to the forefront and lead, because most of our people have been trained to follow. And if you think within you, you have the gift to lead, then you must step to the forefront and lead. And that's exactly what I did.
There are other organizations out there. I even go to the NAN meeting, National Action Network here in Detroit. And there's the National Urban League, there's the NAACP. You want yours to become on that plateau? Or what do you hope happens with the UNIA?
Well, my dear brother, all those organizations came a long time afterward. The only organization that was around when Mr. Garvey was around was the NAACP.
Right.
And the NAACP was aspiring to be like the UNIA. It was after Mr. Garvey deportation and so-called somewhat demise of the UNIA that you saw the rising of numbers and membership in the NAACP. It's only after that, because the NAACP, as far as membership, leadership, and guidance, they could not be compared to the UNIA. Remember, the UNIA was a government and had 12 million members across the world. So where we know the NAACP was aspiring to be like the UNIA, and they got a kick because remember, the NAACP was being led by W.E. Du Bois and the other brothers and sisters who were anti Mr. Garvey. So I don't speak ill against any other Black group or Black organization, but what I'd like to see is that more of those organizations push towards economic development of our communities, really pushing for that and inspiring our community to take control of their own communities. And I'm not seeing that with a lot of our organization. It's more like a flamboyant type of thing for show, and they're not addressing the Pan-African issues that Mr. Garvey and the UNIA addressed.
Okay, here's another question in that regard. What is your premise? And what I mean by that is the NAACP, let's say their premise is fighting against injustice. Let's say the Urban League is helping people get jobs. The National Action Network is to fight injustice also. What would be your premise, if I may ask?
To help to make the movement closer, to advance the movement closer for the liberation of Africa and her scattered children.
How do you do this? What happens at a general meeting? If I were to come, what would happen at a general meeting? Is there a protocol of some sort? So that what I want to do here is help you get more people. Yeah. So your call to them is to say, what come and this is what we're going to do.
Yes, we have a meeting, and our meeting is always to organize our people. And right now, if you realize that Mr. Garvey created a lot of businesses, we are bringing back that in the UNIA, because between Mr. Garvey and the last 10 years, it was a stalemate with the UNIA. But we are back here picking up the pieces and moving Garvey and Garveyism fast forward. And to do that simultaneously while we're building here in these United States, we must be building in Africa. We must have relationships in Africa. We must have businesses in Africa. while we're building here. As we see America, we have to be truthful. Black people are always saying that we're not leaving here because we build it here. Well, brother, well, we were being lynched at one point, and we're still being lynched. Imagine you living in a country and you have to be telling the country that my life matters. If I live in a country and that country loves me, that country should know that my life matters.
All right.
And I shouldn't have to tell them. So we have to know that, are we still wanted here? We're not telling every African person here to get up and leave, because Mr. Garvey said, some of us are not good here and we will never be good in Africa. But we need to have a system, we need to have a government that's going to advocate on our behalf. I see other races here in North America, and their boys are not being shot down, their boys are not being killed, because they have a nation to back them up.
I got you.
What is out there? Which organization is out there to stop the killing of innocent and unarmed Black man?
Sure.
Which organization can you tell me in, let's say in America, who is ensuring that doesn't happen? Do you know why they don't kill Indian boys here? Because India will protect them. Do you know why they don't kill Chinese boys here in the street? Because China will protect them. Take any other group here, why they're not being killed? Because those government, those countries and their institutions ensure that their children have a fair chance in this here government. Black people will say, some Black people will say, we love America, but does America love us?
I got you. Is there a book? Like if I was to join, somebody was to join, is there like a book, you talk about Garvey principles, that has written up and says, these are the principles that we follow?
Yeah.
Which let's say, I don't mean to use this term, but for lack of, is there a Bible for the UNIA?
Yes, yes, the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey, one, and the second book would be Message to the People, African Philosophy.
If you don't mind, I ask, do you have a copy of those with you right there?
This is the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey.
Okay, I see it.
Good.
So when people come, they read that book.
Yeah, we ask for everyone to read this book. As Kwame Nkrumah from Ghana, the first president of Ghana, who came here to study theology, he stumbled up on this book. And he said, of all the books I read, the philosophy and opinion of Marcus Garvey had more significance. And that is what pushed me to go back and start for the fight for the liberation of Africa.
Okay.
Then this book here,
right? Message to the People,
The Course of African Philosophy. This book helped to guide me. There was a time as a young Black man growing up in America, you're upset with the police, you're upset with the system. But by reading this book here, Mr. Garvey gave me some instruction in this book here. It tells me what, the police. He said, in any community, the police is looking for leadership. And if the community is organized, then you would lead the police. If you're not organized, then the police will lead you. So I say that instead of us being upset, organize ourselves so we can dictate to the police or any agencies that exist and operate within our community. So this book dictates and tells a lot of life lessons on how to carry yourself, how to live. And then we have a little pamphlet here that we give to people that if a member comes and can't afford to get a book right away, this pamphlet here can give them an idea of what we're about.
Do you all have a national conference?
Yes, we have our convention each year.
Okay.
And a few years ago, we were in Jamaica, we were in St. Croix, we were in Liberia in 2019, we were in New York City in 2021. We came to Detroit 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And next year, we're going to the islands. We're going to not St. Croix, but Curacao.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you, do they have elections for president or per se, or you, how long do you want to keep running the presidency yourself, if I may ask?
Well, we have an election every 4 years.
Okay.
And we will have elections again in 2023. If the members feel that I'm not serving, they should vote me out. But if the members believe that you're really serving, they're going to want you to continue serving.
This takes a lot of your time, doesn't it?
A whole lot of my time. This is the most important thing in my life. I'm happy that God has allowed me, my ancestors have allowed me, my people have allowed me to do my own business, where I can go where I need to go, travel to various cities. Like I told you that I just came back from Africa, then I went to Jamaica. But I came to Detroit.
Yeah, right.
About 2 weeks, I'm going to Canada because we have a division, but it's in Canada. And then I'm going to Africa. Then when I come back from Africa, I'm going to Jamaica for a conference there.
Wow.
So this allowed me to do the things that I need to do for my people.
On a personal note, are your parents still alive? Did they see what you've become?
And unfortunately, my father died when I was a boy, but he was part of the biggest of my inspiration. My mother got to see a part of this because I really got into this lifestyle when I was only 17 years old. As I said, when I came to this country, as a young man from Jamaica, all that I could think about was Jamaica. I think that Jamaicans were the best. I think that Jamaicans were this, proud to be a Jamaican, but all I know was Jamaican. But after reading this book, Philosophy and Opinion, it taught me that I'm an African born in Jamaica.
I love it. One more question. Is there a question that I have not asked you of any note that I don't want to leave anything out, given the time constraint? Is there something like that?
Maybe,
go ahead.
Maybe what are you doing now?
All right.
To further the movement?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. What I do twice a year, Mr. Garvey brought Africa to us. As the President General now, I am charged with the responsibilities to taking Africans from here to Africa, for them to see Africa for themselves. You have to realize, my brother, we heard about so many stories about Africa. We heard about how we played a role in slavery, which is a lie. As long as we allow the hunter to tell our story, the hunter will be glorified.
That's right.
So I take back Africans to Africa so they can see for themselves. However, our objective is to continue the work of Mr. Garvey. So we have organized in Liberia, and we have built a farm. It's called Liberty Farm in Liberia, where we're able to hire the local people. We believe that we can have an impact on the local economy by building farms, by building factories, by manufacturing products and sending back here. Currently, we're building a factory in Liberia. We're going to have workers there make cassava, from cassava, make cassava products. We're going to be making coconut oil. We're going to make it a slew of products, which we're going to send here to these United States in our distribution company. So our objective is, while we're going to take Africans to educate Africans on Africa, we're building and helping the economic society of Liberia and the rest of Africa.
Love it. You're proud of yourself, aren't you?
Well, I'm proud of myself when I see that I have people working with me, because no matter how great you want to think you are as an individual, if you don't have support of the people, if the people are not working with you, then you're just an individual walking, not really leading.
Right. Is there a model, saying or something like that, that like if you come to a meeting, this is what we say at the beginning or the end of the meeting that Garvey said, that is a Garvey saying that kind of closes us out?
One God, one aim, one destiny.
I love it. Oh my God. Everybody, like this video. If there was a love button, you would have to hit that. But just like it. Everybody, let me tell you something. I got a national leader, international leader on Strong Inspirations. I'm on the come up. I'm so excited that I could not sleep last couple of nights when he communicated through his people. He got people now. I ain't got no people. Through his people that he would come on the show. This is huge. This gentleman is huge from Jamaica who read a book and has made it his life's mission. Something moved him that way, that strongly. And when he got a free moment, this is what he does. Hit the subscribe button on Strong Inspirations, the like button on this video, the notifications bell. Let me ask you one other question. What's your website? How do people find you to get involved and that kind of thing?
We're going to give them the UNIAACL government.org. UNIAACL government.org.
All right, everybody go there. It'll be in the description. Support the cause. As it moves you, join the organization. Help set up a chapter in your, is it called chapters, branches?
Chapters, division.
Chapters, divisions in your city. Let's grow this, because it's on good. It's a good thing. Point blank. You can feel it through his passion. And so everybody, hey, let me just tell you this. To you, my brother, I say this with all sincerity, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, top of my heart, around my heart, that I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind. I love what you've become and what you're doing. Ain't nothing bad about it. It's all on the right side. And I'm taking a little liberty. I know that God leads you to do and say and act the way you do. And then with that as the top, and then with Marcus Garvey and what he has portrayed and what he has said in the middle, you take heed of this. and you leading this movement and things are happening. Ain't nothing wrong with this. Don't let nobody tell you there's something wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with the effort. I appreciate it. Any last words that you want to say before we close out?
Well, for me, brother, thanks for taking the time. It was an honor to speak to you in Detroit. And thank you for taking the time. It's an honor to be on the show. All I'd ask for you to do is to look up our local division there.
Thank you so much. Everybody, with that, I'll say bye-bye. We out. Be safe.
Bye-bye.